Robin's kitchen window lets in a gentle stream of morning sunlight that looks too dramatic to be true. For a moment that doesn't quite belong to the people living it, the continuous, undetectable hum of the cameras fills the air like background music. With a brush in his hand, Kody Brown sits behind his 13-year-old son, Solomon. He carefully and slowly runs it through the boy's hair, as if each stroke could enhance the image he's been attempting to present to the world. Solomon doesn't relax, but he also doesn't fight. His eyes periodically flit toward the closest lens, and his shoulders remain tight. Kody's smile is the same one he's been practicing for years. It's soft enough to imply atonement and wide enough to appear sincere. His voice is pleasant and precisely calibrated for the microphone attached to his shirt as he states, "These are the moments that matter." Hovering close to the counter, Robin's expression is one of silent appreciation. The crew adores this angle. The child is loved, the wife is fulfilled, and the father is rehabilitated. Welcome to TLC Flicks, your ultimate destination for all things reality, drama, and binge-worthy moments. From shocking twists to behind-the-scenes secrets, however, they are surrounded by golden light as the camera moves closer. The sound engineer gives a nod of agreement. The scene is ideal. On the inside, though, the beauty seems off. When a 13-year-old child gets brushed by his father, it is not tender. Rather, it is uncomfortable, manufactured, and even tragic. It demonstrates an effort to appear connected rather than a connection. Solomon moves about in his seat. "It's all right, Dad." In a quiet but calm voice, he adds, "I can do it." Kody laughs softly, as people do when they are being humble. No, I understand. Isn't this what we do?" The bush continues to move. The cameras continue to roll. "This is gold," a producer murmurs to another in the corner. Complete turnaround time. Nevertheless, the scenario strikes a different chord with those who have stayed long enough. It wasn't Kody making sandwiches or brushing hair when the show first started. Logan, 16, worn out and mature beyond his years, got up before the sun came up to prepare breakfast and guide his siblings into the day. Therefore, Kody was a ghost who moved from home to home, preaching leadership while abstaining. Now, sitting in a bright kitchen, the same man who once seemed to sail above the labor of fatherhood is acting as though he has rediscovering it. Like dust particles in sunshine, the irony clings to the atmosphere. Kody gives Solomon a shoulder pat after the final stroke is completed. "There we have it. Champion, are you ready for school?" The child stands up and nods, a look of relief flashing across his face. With excessive care, Kody picks up a backpack, zips it up, and gives it over. Robin looks on proudly, her eyes sparkling, or perhaps that's just the light bouncing from the camera setup. They all go outside. At the curb, the school bus is waiting. Solomon is led to the door by Kody, who gives him an overly long embrace before waving as the bus leaves. A man waving to demonstrate his transformation makes the moment stretch like elastic. Silence descends as the bus vanishes. The cameras continue to roll. Kody slowly lowers his hand. "Did we receive that?" He asks the crew instead of Robin or himself. "Yes," one of them responds. "Excellent." The scene is over in an instant. The performance ends. The warmth of the light fades. With the brush still on the counter inside, Kody stands by himself in the silent driveway, representing what he wants everyone to think he has become. Before the screen goes black, the cameras take one final picture of the back of his head with the morning sun fading. The true story, smaller, noisier, and far less attractive, was told in a different kitchen long before the cameras ever captured Kody Brown stroking Solomon's hair. The clatter of early mornings filled the small room in the old house. The clock always seemed to be moving too quickly, and the air had a burnt toasty, syrupy fragrance. Logan, who was just 16 years old, was the one behind the stove in that kitchen, yet he already had the worn-out poise of someone much older than Kody. He watched three younger siblings fight over spoons, flipped pancakes, and cracked eggs with one hand. A faint sound from another room carried their father's words, which had to do with meetings and responsibilities. Although it was rarely used as an activity, the word family was constantly present. Logan put a plate on the table and said, "Come on guys, eat." He was simply exhausted, not angry. His voice had the subdued authority of someone who realized too soon that waiting for assistance would never result in anything being done. Gabe and little Ari sat laughing, their cheeks sticky with sugar. Logan's gaze strayed to the clock, but he still grinned at them. His siblings weren't dressed yet, but he had school in 20 minutes. He sighed, stood up, and started over teeth, jackets, shoes, and backpacks. Everything. The kitchen was largely tidy by the time Kody showed up. Logan put on his own shoes as he stood by the door. "Hey, children." Kody exploded, all radiance and charm. "How is this morning going for my crew?" "Daddy," the children yelled as they hurried toward him. Laughing, he raised one of them. Even if there were no cameras at the time, his energy was the same, large, boisterous, and fleeting. "Are you already heading out?" Kody's tone was light as he asked Logan. Logan said, "Yeah," in a courteous but flat voice. "School will soon begin." Kody gave an inattentive nod. "Well done, guy. I appreciate your assistance." Logan stepped out the door with a faint smile that stopped short of his eyes. The bus thundered down the road. The unpaid emotional labor, the stolen adolescence, and the silent hatred hidden beneath routine would reverberate for years, even if he was unaware of it at the time. 10 years have passed, and Logan is now sitting on a shabby couch in his own apartment, watching snippets of the most recent Sister Wives episode on his phone. The image on the television depicts Solomon's father stroking his hair while grinning and acting gentle as if he had just learned the meaning of love. Logan observes silently. The episode's background music is delicate and heartfelt, with strings swelled beneath Kody's narration of second chances. A reformed parent who is kind and considerate is shown to the audience. Logan notices something very different. He witnesses the mornings that were never broadcast. Missed buses, unbrushed hair, and unanswered phone calls. Instead of the labor of family, he sees a man who vanished into the concept of it. He puts down his phone and looks at the wall. The quiet weighs more than the syrup-stained mayhem of the former kitchen. As viewers show their appreciation in the comments section, Kody smiles as he browses the same episode on a tablet across town. "Kody, you've come a long way. This is really lovely to watch. We adore this aspect of you." Pretending to be unaware of the irony, he double-taps a few hearts. A boy once learned how to be a parent in a kitchen because his own wasn't. In another, years later, someone finally presses record, and that same parent learns how to appear like one. Those pancake morning ghosts were always there. They simply discovered greater lighting. Before they shine, the lights in the studio hum. In a half circle, 3 cameras wait. Kody's face is powdered, and his collar is straightened by another. Just off frame, a bottle of water with condensation glittering in the light. Not a house or a church, but the confessional chair is now his haven. This is where he transforms absence into a lesson and remorse into a story. He smiles, takes a seat, and lets out a slow breath. From behind the camera, a producer says, "All right, Kody, we're coming in 3, 2, 3. The red light continues to flash. Kody's eyes immediately become softer. Fans love the deep, humble tone in which he dips his voice. He starts off by saying, "Life has a way of teaching you stuff. I wasn't the greatest father all the time, but I've changed. I now know." When he speaks, his hands make a gesture of honesty by opening their palms. He stops at just the appropriate times. Confession as craft is something he has done 100 times. He continues, turning away from the camera as though seeking emotion. "I just want my kids to know that I love them. Each and every one. I may not have shown it earlier, but I am now doing so." The producer gives a nod of approval. The camera moves in closer. Since emotion sells better than facts, a single tear might be edited. Kody blinks a couple more times, but no tear appears. The illusion of suffering will glow perfectly with a little color grading and music, but the editor can correct that later. He discusses the journey and finding balance. He expresses gratitude to Robin for teaching him patience. According to him, he has become a different man. The words are practiced, which is why they sound that way. The unvarnished, unscripted version of the truth is always present. The silence is heavy when the red light finally turns off. "That good?" Kody asks, letting out a breath and stretching his neck. The producer responds, "Perfect." You got it exactly right. Underneath, we'll overlay some old Season 2 video, possibly including the children playing. It will appear stunning. He grinned. Lovely. Now that's the main focus. Not sincere, not genuine. Lovely. Later, in between shots, he browses through his phone in the corridor. The screen displays a fresh message from one of his older children. You don't have to pretend that you care. Simply give us a call occasionally. He doesn't open it. As an aide calls him back in, he puts the phone in his pocket. One more confession. One more take. Kody briefly closes his eyes before they roll once more under the lights. He can practically persuade himself that this is important and that he means it when he says it on camera. The producer says, "Let's give it another go." The word family needs a little more emotion. Kody gives a nod. Once more the red light flashes. His eyes sparkle a little, and his face softens. "Family," he says. When the word leaves his lips, it sounds full, luminous, and cinematic. But it is empty. The crew secretly observes from behind the cameras. Hundreds of fathers have been captured on camera feigning atonement. They all have the same tone. The studio had a subtle scent of sweat and honesty toward the end of the scene. After expressing gratitude to the staff, Kody puts on his coat and steps outside into the last of the afternoon light. No one is shooting outside. Nobody is observing. The silence presses in as he pauses at the door. Then, almost without thinking, he stares at his image in the window pane to make sure he still appears to be a better man. There is now a particular rhythm to Robin's mornings. They are slower, kinder, and too planned out to be impromptu. The kids navigate it as if they were supporting actors in a drama they have committed to memory. Making breakfast, Kody hums while he cheerfully pours cereal. With her coffee still unfinished, Robin leans against the counter and glances at the camera crew position close to the window. This week, they are on their 4th day of filming. "I don't mind," she tells herself. This is the appearance of healing. Kody has changed. Softer, more conscious of his appearance, and more present. His hands remain somewhat longer on the children's shoulders as he gives them hugs, allowing the camera to capture it. He looks at the crew to make sure it lands when he adds, "I love you." Robin observes. She never fails to notice. She encourages herself not to worry too much about it at first. Wasn't this what she prayed for, after all? A spouse who cared, who laughed more, and who at last stayed at home. The man who used to vanish into other homes is now singing while rinsing mugs at her kitchen sink. However, as she observes him, she starts to notice the pattern. The slight variations in his tone when the camera's red light turns on, the way his smile becomes more pointed at the ideal angle, and how his laughter stops as soon as they cut. Everything is a part of the beat. The air loses its energy when the crew disbands for the day. Once more, the house feels empty. Kody withdraws to his office to see the video that the producers sent him. Robin stays in the kitchen and keeps cleaning the things that are already spotless. She hears him say, "Yeah, I think that moment with Solomon brushing his hair, that's the one," from the adjacent room. Don't lose that. That is gold. Her palm tightens around a dish towel as she briefly closes her eyes. Kody joins her in bed that night after the kids have gone to sleep, feeling content and in a good mood. This season is going to be the best yet, he predicts. I sense it. It's truthful. People will notice our progress. Robin tries to grin, but her mind wanders. Sincere. The meaning of that word has changed. She recalls the early days when spotlights were used to illuminate love, when there were no second takes in the laughing. When Kody's touch didn't seem like it belonged in a show. Everything has a place now. Every sigh, every hug, every apology, all of them are exquisitely timed and illuminated. She never intended to establish the silent rules that govern her home. Guidelines such as avoid talking while the cameras are adjusting the illumination. When he talks about growth, smile. Never contradict the narrative. Because peace depends on performance and love is edited in this house. Later, with the moonlight forming a silver line across the ceiling, she lies awake next to him. With one arm over her waist and his phone remaining in his other hand, Kody snores quietly while the screen is dim yet dimly lighting. She can see paused video of him and Solomon together, the ideal moment that everyone has been discussing. She puts the phone face down on the nightstand, reaches over, and hits the power button. Maddie Brown has no intention of viewing the upcoming season. She assured herself that she was finished with the editing, the lies, and the meticulously crafted feelings that had transformed her family's suffering into popular entertainment. However, the clips managed to locate her. She stumbled upon it again, the viral one, while scrolling through her page in a rare moment of silence. The video shows Solomon's hair being brushed by her father. Acoustic music, dim lighting with the tagline "A Father's Second Chance," millions of views. There were thousands of comments. "This is quite touching. He is an amazing father. He looks good in redemption." With her infant in her lap and the soft hum of a washing machine in the background, Maddie gazed at the TV. At first, she was confused rather than angry. The kind man in the video didn't resemble the one she remembered. Her father was always on the go, restless, and more talkative than physical. He made big entrances and abrupt exits, gave stirring speeches about unity, and then disappeared for extended periods of time, leaving diners in a state of uncertainty. She recalled his missed birthdays, the broken promises due to road trips and movie schedules, and her mother's tacit justifications. "He's busy, sweetie. Filming is, Kody's internet persona seems unfamiliar. A loving father. A man who was born again. And he had everyone cheering him on." She lowered the volume and silently observed the situation. It was just odd without the music. A parent too late to learn the gestures he'd missed. A teenager too old to be brushed. Her spouse noticed her reaction as he entered. "Are you all right?" She put down the phone and nodded. "I'm just fed up with people holding him in high regard for things he never did for us." He paused. "You could present your argument. People would pay attention." Maddie gave a headshake. "The truth is not what they want. They're looking for a narrative. He's giving them one too." Later that evening, when everything in the house was quiet, she sat by herself at the kitchen table and looked through old pictures of herself, Logan, and the smaller children. She saw genuine, sloppy, and unposed smiles. A family before they were swept away by celebrity. She discovered a picture of her father from when she was 10 years old, sitting on the couch and half watching TV as she showed him a school assignment. At the time, he hadn't looked up. She could still clearly recall the slight pain of invisibility that she had taken for granted. The video was removed from her feed. In any case, the algorithm would bring it back. Kody was watching the same clip in a producer's office across the nation, smiling as they talked about audience participation. Someone remarked, "People adore it. The season's most shared scene is this one. You're connecting with me." With pride, he nodded. Connection is what it's all about. However, everyone's definition of connection was different. The audience saw it as a tale of development. It was content to the editors. Kody saw it as confirmation. It was a wound that Maddie saw as being idealized for the sake of views. She listened to her child's peaceful breathing as she lay awake for a long time after going to bed that night. She questioned whether unfiltered and unfilmed love would ever feel that easy for her family again, as well as what type of man her son would grow up to be. Her father grinned under ideal lighting somewhere, on millions of brilliant screens. The following was the caption: "Being the father your children deserve is something you can do at any time." With her eyes closed, Maddie muttered, "For some of us, it's just too late." The continuous clicking of keyboards mingled with the buzz of machinery inside a gloomy trailer parked behind the production lot. The walls were covered in time codes and sticky notes, as editors sat in front of glowing monitors. They were surrounded by half-empty, neglected coffee cups that like little shrines to fatigue. Here, in the peaceful darkness of post-production, rather than in living rooms or kitchens, was where Sister Wives was really created. Kody Brown's face gleamed in high definition on the main screen. The now-famous photo, which was taken in the ideal golden morning light, showed him stroking Solomon's hair once more. Kody grinned as a music supervisor placed a gentle acoustic guitar underneath it to evaluate how it felt when the melody grew. One editor said, "Bring the audio up right there. The brush is so gentle that you can practically hear it." Through the timeline, another clicked. "Let's cut to some of his earlier season 2 footage. Perhaps he was laughing with the children. We'll make it sentimental and fade it like a memory. We should add that quote from his Confessional, the one about second chances," said another commenter. "It connects everything." The room was filled with the sound of digital slicing. What appeared to be redemption was the trimming, softening, and rearranging of years of history. A producer watched the timeline scroll while leaning over their shoulders. Let's be careful not to do anything that would detract from the tone. Keep it heated. We desire change, not conflict. The editors gave a nod. Brand alliances suffered from the tension. But redemption, that was precious. Raw video of Kody leaving the bus after Solomon goes for school was shown silently on another monitor. The segment that was not broadcast. Did we get that? He asks, dropping his hand and turning to face the crew. The editors hesitated. One of them gave a sardonic smile. We will cut ahead of that line. A few keystrokes and the truth was gone. His contrite statement, "It's never too late to be the father your kids deserve," was superimposed over the last shot after it was replaced with a slow fade-out and gentle piano music. It was a lovely sequence. Even poetic. There was a moment of silence in the trailer as the last cut was aired. Even to them, it seemed real. At last, the producer said, "Perfect. He appears totally changed." One editor adjusted her headphones and whispered, "Yeah," as if he really means it. After saving the show as S17E04_ Final Cut _ Master, they exported it and submitted it for network approval. Another week, a new narrative. It was becoming dark outside the trailer. The stars were dimmed by the city light, and the lot was deserted. With warm, golden-hued eyes, one of the editors lingered, gazing at the monitor that still displayed Kody's frozen smile. With almost sadness, she muttered to herself, "If only real change were as simple as a good edit." She then shut down the laptop. Kody's atonement vanished as the screen turned blank. Soon, fans throughout town would weep over the final episode and write about development and forgiveness on the internet. However, the unprocessed video, the truth, would be stored on a hard drive with the designation B-roll or unused. Did we get that? Was the query posed by a father in that unreleased video. They did. However, they also obtained everything else and silently erased it. The desert was bathed in subdued tones of red and amber as the sun hung low over Flagstaff. Christine Brown stopped her car outside a neat suburban home with neutral colors and carefully chosen charm that appeared to have been set up for a family magazine shoot. Robin's home. Her pulse throbbed with an ancient, intricate rhythm as she sat there for a while with her fingers resting on the steering wheel. In the past, this type of visit would have signified sisterhood, children running between kitchens, casseroles being exchanged, and laughter being shared. However, that was a different meaning of family and a different lifespan. It was merely an awkward necessity now. Robin had made a call the previous evening. It was the first call in months. "Kody wants to see truly," she had stated in a practiced, kind tone. In order to shield her kid from the spectacle of it all, Christine had been hesitant to say no. However, Christine wasn't mean, and truly continued to inquire about her father occasionally. Simply exhausted. Solomon answered the door when she knocked at last. Taller now, bashful, 13. He was, of course, well-groomed. Christine gave a quiet smile. "Hi, Sol." Uncertain, kind, and camera-trained, he returned the smile. "Hello, Christine. Dad is inside." As usual, the lighting in the living room was flawless. It appeared as though life here was a never-ending set, even though the cameras weren't rolling today. Kody was standing close to the couch, his face too serious, his posture too rigid. With his arms outstretched as though welcoming an old friend, he exclaimed, "Christine." She didn't approach him. "Kody." It was a long, empty quiet, not one of anger. Unspoken words for years had become a thick, imperceptible barrier separating them. Then, tentatively but optimistically, truly peered over Christine's legs. "Hello, Dad." Kody softened all of a sudden. For a brief moment, something flickered beneath the performance, making his smile real. He opened his arms and knelt. "Hey, my love." She approached him carefully, as though she were seeing a former acquaintance. Christine noticed the brief expression in Kody's eyes when she gave him a hug. Shame, fear, and love. All twisted. Like a man trying to commit to memory the weight of something he has already lost, he hugged her. He remarked, stepping back to examine her face. "Look at you. You've grown so large." Truly murmured softly, "Yeah, it was my birthday." Christine's heart broke. Truly's tone, which was matter-of-fact rather than resentful, spoke volumes. Robin came out of the kitchen, her voice soft and well-rehearsed. I baked cookies. For everybody. Too liberal for the atmosphere, the word everyone landed strangely in the air. All four of them sat, acting as though nothing was wrong, as a man catching up on a life he'd missed. Kody tried to inquire about school, hobbies, and pals. Sincere response, courteous but aloof. She spoke in a cautious, circumspect tone. Robin once extended her hand to touch Kody's. See, she murmured. You are doing well. Christine understood the tone and the statement. As a father, it wasn't for Kody. It was for the character of Kody. Encouragement for a perfectly executed role. Truly gave her father another embrace when it came time to go. Goodbye, Dad. Kody only managed to say, I'll call soon, okay? While seemed to want to say more. Christine saw the promise form on his lips. She had seen that line far too often, both on and off screen. Truly put on her seatbelt and got back in the car. He's different, she said. Christine looked in the mirror at her. What do you mean? He now makes a greater effort. But he seems to be aiming for someone else. Christine's throat constricted. Perhaps he is. It was a calm drive home. Outside, the desert, which was serene, old, and lovely, rolled on forever in the last of the light. Long after they had left, Kody was sitting on the couch at Robin's house behind them. The cookies did not change. There was more stillness than in any scenario he had ever shot. After a moment of hesitation, he reached for his phone and set it down again. No cameras. Not a crowd. Only him. And the parent on screen vanished without the crew or the lights. All that was left was a guy confronting the reverberation of decisions he was unable to alter. The night of the premiere came like a silent storm. Millions of people nationwide saw Kody Brown's transformation, as the father who had previously strayed through his kids' lives now packed backpacks and brushed his hair as though decades of absence could be reversed in a single moment. The figures on the office monitors of the network increased slightly. The ratings were really high. Every comment, stream, and click seemed like confirmation. The adoration surged on social media. Kody has finally matured. Finally, a heartwarming fatherhood. Redemption has never looked better. Kody was holding a tablet as he sat in the corner of a dimly lit workplace. With a smile that wavered between pride and incredulity, he read through the remarks. Behind him, Robin sipped water while leaning against the desk. They adore it, she remarked, sounding almost amazed. You really connected with people in this scene. With his eyes fixed on the television, he answered, I know. It feels right. More notifications buzzed on the tablet. GIFs depicting him combing Solomon's hair were shared by fans, along with comments full of clapping hands and heart emojis. People were inspired, affected, and touched, and Kody soaked it all in, sip by sip. He looked over the official analytics later that night. Reactions, likes, comments, and shares all exploded. Kody Brown's hairbrush moment steals hearts nationwide was the headline for one of them. From absentee to adored, the father we needed is another. Scrolling through comments of admiration from viewers he would never meet, he tapped the screen. The internet adored him. The portrayal of the parent he now played so effectively had been accepted in America. His older children, meanwhile, observed from living rooms that were distant from the cameras. Hunter, Logan, and Maddie had all matured past the childhood Kody had lost. They carried memories that didn't align with the tale being presented, were skeptics, and were mute. As she scrolled past the viral video, Maddie muttered to herself, growth doesn't erase the past. Logan let out a sigh. The performance receives praise. Life doesn't. Hunter halted the video while he was still on the opposite side of the nation. He's contributing. And the audience is us. Unaware of their silent assessment, Kody kept sharing on social media. A family portrait here, an inspirational quote there. He typed and clicked publish, saying, "It's never too late to be the dad your kids deserve." The likes came in right away. Immediate validation was experienced. That night in the bedroom, Robin laid next to him and watched with the smallest hint of wonder as he scrolled through his notifications. She inquired, "Do you ever stop?" "I suppose not," he said with a small smile. "It feels fantastic. They enjoy it. People have varied opinions on me." She remained silent. She was aware that the man in the house and the picture on the TV were not the same. The truth of years wasted, mornings missed, and words spoken could not be erased. Even while the cameras could depict redemption, the music could soothe the past, and the editing could cover up absence. But for the time being, the ratings presented a tale that everyone was interested in hearing. Basking in the heat of imaginary acclaim, Kody gave the tablet one final smile. He was a parent reincarnated in pixels and hashtags, and he felt alive, accomplished, and seen in that instant. The magic of the play did not affect the real world outside, where Logan was folding laundry, Maddie was watching her child sleep, and Hunter was reflecting on talks that had been lost. Yes, the cameras had recorded a story. But reality? That stayed off screen, silently and resolutely. The season finale had been broadcast for weeks. Robin's house had finally returned to a state of quiet that it hadn't experienced in years after the cameras had left and the crew had packed up. As though the walls themselves were holding their breath, the silence was oppressive, almost alien. Instinctively, Kody walked around the rooms, looking for the telltale indicators of filming, the reflected lights, the buzz of invisible equipment, and the ideal angles. Nothing. No boom mic, no lens, and no producer muttering instructions. It was simply silent in the house. Standing in Solomon's bedroom, he gazed at the immaculately made bed. There was nothing in the corner of the backpack that had been packed and zipped for the cameras. On the desk was a stray hairbrush. Hours ago, the boy had left for school. The morning sun's radiance no longer framed the narrative or emphasized the scene. Kody picked up the brush and flipped it over. Without the cameras, its weight felt different. He questioned whether it had ever meant anything without the audience. Gently, he put it down. He brewed coffee in the kitchen, filled a mug, and carried it into the living room. Staring at the vacant chairs across from him, he sat on the couch. There was silence in the house. Children's laughing, morning turmoil, disputes, and affection are all gone. He grabbed his phone. The barrage of comments, likes, and shares had subsided, and notifications had halted. There was no applause for the first time. Nevertheless, he continued to scroll and came across the widely shared video of Solomon brushing his hair. He continued to receive plaudits and be referred to be a transformed man in comments. But the flush of approval didn't feel real. Setting the phone down, he wiped his face. He strolled around the home, stopping at every door, every hallway, every room that used to be alive with sound and movement. It felt like a set that had been abandoned to collect dust. The truth slowly but surely filtered through the hush. He was merely a man without the lights, the cameras, the directing, or the meticulously planned scenes. A dad who doesn't get any praise. He was an uneditable man who had missed childhoods, birthdays, and mornings. He sat there for a long time without talking, not moving. He felt the emptiness envelop him like a chilly blanket. There was no production team to cheer his motions, no audience to reassure him, and no mellow music to make the absence seem romantic. He eventually got up and moved toward the window. The sky was streaking with colors that the cameras could never fully capture as the sun was lowering. He gazed at the peaceful street, the trees swinging in the evening wind, and a world that passed by without any retakes or edits. For the first time, Kody experienced the weight of absence as reality rather than as a narrative, performance, or content. He put down his mug and let out a deep exhale. There was silence in the house. Too silent. And in that silence, he understood that it would require more than just gentle lighting, music, and frame to achieve redemption. True redemption. Presence would be required. Each day. Not for the cameras. Not for the ratings. For the audience, no. The season's climactic moment had been taped weeks earlier. There was silence in the house. There was none of the typical hum of a reality show production. The kids had gone to school, and the youngest had taken a nap. The gentle evening light streaming in through the windows cast long shadows on the floor as Kody Brown sat by himself in the living room. He grabbed his phone and browsed through the premiere remarks, the videos, the compliments, and the incessant, heartwarming responses. He let himself smile for a second. He had succeeded, or at least he appeared to have. The father he aspired to be was revealed to the world. But now that I was by myself, the approval seemed far away. The cheers, likes, and comments are all reflections of a version of him that was meticulously chosen for the lighting, music, and cameras. Quietly pressing against him were the truth about who he had been and the time he had lost. The producers had scheduled the season's last confessional interview for later that evening. Kody, who was suddenly smaller and less forgiving than the meticulously crafted morning glow in the kitchen, sat under the gloomy studio lights. Silently, the cameras whirred in anticipation. "Do you believe you've improved as a father?" A producer inquired, softly, almost inquisitively. Kody paused. Suddenly, the well-rehearsed words that had gotten him through dozens of confessions didn't seem enough. Though those words felt like armor against the reality that waited outside the frame, he could talk about progress, redemption, and lessons learned. He let out a leisurely exhale and, for the first time, let the silence envelop them. He muttered, "I think I look like one." His face was held by the camera for a lengthy, awkward period. There was no music. The edges were not softened by any golden light. Kody was alone himself, facing the camera that had always required the best of him, and he was suddenly getting a brief peek of the man beneath it. Thinking of Maddie growing up without bedtime stories, of Solomon waiting years for simple gestures he had once refused to offer, of Logan preparing breakfast at 16, he lowered his eyes. Unframed, unscripted, and unedited, his children's faces drifted across his consciousness. The guys behind the camera said nothing. The stillness was more weighty than any cheers, remarks, or shares. The chair creaked under Kody when he stood up at the end of the last take. The chilly night air greeted him as he left the studio. Cameras did not follow. There was no cheering from the crew. The weight of reality was not lessened by any music. He confronted it head-on for the first time. The years wasted, the mornings lost, the void that no lens could ever cover. He stopped beneath the streetlights and gazed up at the endless, uncaring stars. Redemption had ceased to be a scene or a shareable clip. It was something immeasurably slower, harder, and quieter. The story of parenting was his to live, not merely to act in, and Kody realized in that silence the truth he could no longer edit, frame, or perform. There was no script for reality. Neither gentle music nor soft lighting framed it. Let us know in your comments. And stay tuned by subscribing our channel to get more updates like this. Thanks everyone.